Welcome to Counterpoints. I'm Michal Prendergast, and coming up on the show tonight, the shocking killing of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk has ignited a global firestorm. It's triggered backlash, a cancel culture reckoning on the left, and what many are calling the greatest free speech debate of a generation. Thanks to our panelists who join us tonight: Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks, Pastor Burns, President Trump's spiritual advisor, and British political activist Femi Oluwole. Thank you all so much for your time. I'd like to start with you, Femi. Do you think it was justified for some people to celebrate Kirk's death?
So for me personally, my position was I was indifferent. I do not care, because the man was an evil man. And quite frankly, anybody who has expressed sorrow for Charlie Kirk's death but hasn't expressed sorrow for the many people who have been victims of Charlie Kirk's kind of policies. For example, the 80,000 people who've been killed in Gaza because of a genocide that Charlie Kirk supported, the people who die from gun deaths, 30,000 people who die from gun deaths every year in America. And Charlie Kirk is somebody who once said that those deaths are a worthy sacrifice in the name of the Second Amendment. If you have not wept for those people, weeping for Charlie Kirk means that you value the perpetrator's life over the victim's life.
I'm going to turn to you, Pastor. You knew Charlie Kirk. You spoke to him the day before his murder. What was your reaction to Femi's points there?
Well, listen, he has a right to his opinion, and I'm not here to insult him, but I think, the reality of it is no one should ever celebrate the death of a person being killed. Now, I understand that he said he was indifferent, and he has a right to believe what he believes. I do agree that, and I think Charlie actually agreed, as it's coming out even more towards the end of his life, that he too was supporting, or at least beginning to speak out against the atrocities of what's happening to those in the Gaza. And so he's been on record communicating that, and I can even tell you behind the scenes that was one of the conversations that was happening. And yes, we do need to understand, I do support Israel's right to be a nation, and I think that Hamas should be assassinated, killed, destroyed, because they are offering a lot of death and destruction, but you should never, ever celebrate the death or the assassination just because of their voice. What happens to the First Amendment? It's not Charlie Kirk's voice, Pastor, that caused the death of, it's not Charlie Kirk's death or Charlie Kirk's words, that caused what took place in Gaza. It wasn't Charlie Kirk's word that caused Hamas to go and rape and kill and murder innocent people in Israel. It wasn't Charlie Kirk's words, Pastor, to do that. It wasn't Charlie Kirk's words to call for the death of America by Iran and for the Houthis to kill and massacre American interests. So these things are very much real. I do agree with you. We have to take a look at the inhumane things that are happening to the innocent people in the Gaza. There's a lot of innocent people. Do we should destroy Hamas? Yes. But to what extent should the innocent people of the Gaza should be harmed the way they are? So Charlie Kirk's words didn't do that.
I'm going to come to you in a second, Anna. I just want to let Femi respond.
So it's funny that you should draw the line, it's wrong to celebrate somebody's death. Have you seen the video of Charlie Kirk saying how, I used to joke about how people in Palestine would throw gay people off of buildings, but they haven't got any high buildings anymore, stupid Muslims. That's something he did. Literally celebrating the deaths of people in Gaza, making fun of them, in fact. Now, it's funny that you draw the line of you can't celebrate, but he was happy to celebrate the deaths of innocent people, 80,000 innocent people. And the thing is, for me personally, I take the position of I'm indifferent. I don't care that he died. However, that is a privilege, because me personally, I'm okay. I've got my job. I'm not in poverty. I'm not being shot at by police that were fueled by the racism that Charlie Kirk purported. I'm not somebody in Gaza who fears the bombs that were paid for by a regime that Charlie Kirk supported. So I have the privilege of not feeling the need to celebrate that death. However, if I was celebrating the death of somebody who supported policies that endanger your life, feels like a pretty human reaction.
I've seen on X, Anna, you've come out and you've condemned those on the left who have celebrated Charlie's death. Are you shocked by the level of extremism from those on the left, your own side?
I'm not shocked about the level of extremism on the left because I've experienced it firsthand myself. But I would caution anyone from thinking that those individuals are representative of the entirety of the American left. The fact of the matter is we have a two-party system that I do not believe accurately represents the entirety of the left or the right. There are obviously significant variations. You know, policy-wise, I clearly fall on the left, but I would not in any way celebrate the assassination of any political figure, any pundit, mainly because I value human life, number one, and I don't think anyone should be targeted and assassinated over their political speech, regardless of how abhorrent or how much I disagree with it. And to be sure, I certainly did disagree with Charlie Kirk's stances, political views. But what I appreciated about Charlie Kirk was that he provided a platform to anyone who was willing to debate these topics with him, including myself. And so on multiple occasions, he and I had political debate. We had dialogue. We exchanged ideas. And that is what this country needs in order to heal. As far as the Gaza situation goes, I also agree with the pastor in that, you know, Charlie Kirk certainly said some pretty horrific things about Muslims and the Palestinian people. But in recent months, it was very clear to me that he was starting to perceive what was going on in the Middle East in a much more nuanced way. And he was willing to look at the evidence and potentially change his opinions. And I'll also say that as someone who's been on camera since I was literally 20 years old, I myself have said things in my early 20s, in my mid 20s, even in my early 30s that I do not feel great about, that I've changed my mind about. And, you know, for the gentleman in the UK, I understand where you're coming from in regard to just being horrified by some of the things that Charlie Kirk is on the record saying. But at the same time, I think you need to think about what this could lead to in the United States, what a political assassination could lead to. Currently, the Trump administration, in my opinion, is currently exploiting the injustice that occurred in regard to Charlie Kirk and using it to take control of the media and essentially violate the constitutional rights that Americans have to free speech. I'm very much concerned about that. And so this could lead to the situation on the ground devolving further in the United States. We need to protect free speech at any and all costs.
So just
let
two
me
quick
just
points.
Piggyback on that because
How do you respond, Femi?
Piggyback on that. Well, let me just respond to her point of view, and this is Pastor Burns here. And let me just say this. Number one, I want to agree with her. Again, I'm one of those people. The president calls me his pit bull. He knows that, you know, I'm deep MAGA. I believe in the American First agenda, but also, it was just why my opinion changed about Ukraine. I was against Ukraine, but then when I went to Ukraine, my opinion changed about Ukraine. Number one, let's just be clear. I do believe Israel has a right to be a nation, but at the same time, I do not agree with the atrocities that are happening to those in the Gaza. It is an apartheid movement that is happening. I am very conservative. I'm very strong Republican. And this is the first time I'm saying this on camera. But right is right, wrong is wrong. And I do not think that people who are being massacred, who don't even have a way to defend themselves, should be bombarded and bombed and starved. And I think that's what Charlie was headed to. You cannot be a true believer, a true man of God, and see the evil that has happened to innocent people. We're not talking about Hamas. We're not talking about the government institution that has pushed and aged and that really caused this to happen to their people. But we're talking about the innocent people that are dying. I posted a video a couple of days ago of a boy, a special needs boy who's a Palestinian, and he's been beaten while he's chained to a wall. These kind of atrocities that are happening, and that are happening to innocent people. You can't be a man of God or a Christian like Charlie said he was, and he was, because I knew him personally. To see that, yes, I believe in Israel. They're America's greatest supporter, but you cannot turn a blind eye to the innocent people who are not Hamas. The little boys that are carrying buckets of water while bombs are dropping, they don't look like Hamas to me. They look like little boys who just want to be little boys and little kids. And so, Charlie, in the end of his life, began to see the same things that many of us who are strong Israel supporters, but at the same time, you cannot turn a blind eye to the evil that has happened. And I don't care whether they're Muslims, because there are Christians in the Gaza. There are Jews in the Gaza. There are not just Muslims in the Gaza.
Allow Femi in, Pastor.
Their race or their religion is.
Thank you, Pastor, for saying that.
There you go, Femi.
Have you heard the phrase, a person is not who they were in the last conversation they had with you, they're who they've been throughout their entire relationship? There's nothing substantially that's changed in the last couple of months that would make you suddenly realize that indiscriminately bombing the homes of 2 million people suddenly is a bad thing. The only thing that could possibly have changed is the political situation, because he watched 80,000 people get murdered. He was totally okay with that.
That's not true. When you start receiving proper information and you're not being led by propaganda, you receive
allow me to finish. I'll let you speak for a very long time. I'll let you speak for a very long time.
It's not about politics. It's about people.
I'll let you speak for a very long time.
Well, just be clear. It's not about politics. It's about people.
Nothing concretely has changed in the last few months. Israel has been saying the same things it's been saying since the start about how everybody in Gaza is responsible. That's from President Herzog, that they're human animals, that it's civilians that are tied to the actions of Hamas as well. This has been genocidal from day one. Most people knew that. That's why most people in the UK fundamentally oppose what Israel is doing, has been calling for a ceasefire for almost 2 years now. But the fact is, that is the position that Charlie Kirk took. He tweeted about how say no to Gazan refugees. He showed zero compassion for the people whose murder he supported. Now, to suggest that he is a good person and that we should pretend that just because he's died or because he changed his mind in the final few months of his life, suddenly we should look at him differently? No. A person who isn't who they were in the last conversation you had with them, they're who they've been.
I'm not here to change your opinion about Charlie
Well, he didn't
Kirk.
really have much of a chance to show us how much his mind changed, right?
His ability to die. You should not be celebrating that he was killed. He's got kids, right? He has a wife. I don't care whether he was the KKK or a Black Panther leader. You shouldn't be celebrating. People didn't like Dr. King. They didn't like the fact that he wanted black and white people coming together.
And just there to both of you, it was thousands of people on the left have lost their jobs.
That people should not be losing their job. I disagree with that. Let me tell you why. Because we have the First Amendment. And this is what I've been saying publicly. If you start going after people and attacking people for the things that they say, they're going to eventually do the same thing back to us. And that is destroying what America is. Idi Amin, let me say this and I'm going to stop talking. Idi Amin, the former dictator of Uganda, said this. And I believe this is where we're headed in America. Because he said this infamously. He said, listen, we believe in freedom of speech. You have a right to speak freely. So we believe in freedom of speech, but I cannot guarantee freedom after the speech. And that's what he said in Uganda, who viciously murdered and killed so many of his own people. That's where I feel like we're headed to. I don't think no one should celebrate Charlie Kirk's death. I spoke to him the day before. What did I talk about? I talked about him using the word white Ukrainian, the white woman, the white woman. It was about the Ukrainian woman. And he kept saying white woman. A white woman was murdered. Another white woman was murdered. I said, Charlie, these words, and this is how I talked to him, Charlie, they could be inflammatory words concerning race relations, right? And we already at a heightened race relation. I'm a strong Trump supporter. I have not changed that. I'm a strong conservative. But when we keep using words that can be essentially dog whistles to potential people, I don't believe Charlie Kirk was this person, but it can be a signal to those who do believe in these racist comments. That's the word that I have.
Allow Femi to respond, Pastor. Allow Femi to respond.
I wasn't finished my statement. So the reality of this, I'm telling you my position, Pastor, so you can understand where I'm coming from.
Allow Femi to respond, Pastor.
Charlie's death, absolutely not. And anybody who celebrates Charlie's death, that is evil and wrong from the gates of hell, and it should not be coming out.
Allow Femi to respond.
But that's just who Charlie Kirk was. He said that he wouldn't be able to trust a black pilot. He'd get nervous if he saw a black pilot when he stepped onto a plane. He talked about moronic black lesbians. He's been a racist.
We spoke about this. We spoke about this.
So he's been a racist since the start. And
I believe Charlie
but you may have called it out, but that's who Charlie Kirk was.
Stands on same-sex marriage. But I disagree with some of the phraseologies that was used regarding race.
Allow Femi to speak, Pastor.
Instead of raising people.
Allow Femi to speak, Pastor.
We're talking about celebrating the death and the assassination.
This is a conversation.
That's bull crap, and it should not be coming out of nobody's mouth. Watching that man's neck bleed out on live television for the whole world to see, and you celebrating that? I don't think you should be fired over it.
Allow Femi to speak, Pastor.
Over it because it's the first.
Okay, Pastor.
But you should be able to. But shame on you for even believing or thinking that.
We've had your time. I'd like Femi to respond.
So as Anna was saying, the people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death were not the majority of people on the left. Most people just were frankly indifferent and took a bit of offense at the idea that more airtime has been devoted to his death than for the people whose deaths he supported, especially given that there was a school shooting on the same day that he died. As for the issue of the discussion we're having in terms of the pen versus the sword, i.e., are we in favor of free speech and democracy and things working by ideas rather than through violence? Let's be really clear on the MAGA that Charlie Kirk was behind. Donald Trump literally told the Proud Boys, a white supremacist violent group, to stand back and stand by. He urged people to take their country back just after he lost the election, leading to 5 deaths in the Capitol. He then admitted that was an utterly wrong and those people should be brought to justice. And then as soon as he got power again, he released 1,500 terrorists. And within 6 days, one of them had already died because of an altercation at a traffic stop. He deliberately released terrorists, not to mention the fact that he actually called for one of the governors, I believe it was, to find an extra 1,100 votes in order to win the previous election against Biden. This is somebody who does not care about the process of democracy, who will take power by force. So for him to say that we should all be just using our words and respect the principle of free speech, no, he's banning people like Jimmy Kimmel, Steve Colbert. Anybody who criticizes him has to be silenced. These are people who do not respect free speech at all.
I don't think Jimmy Kimmel should
May I respond to that?
I don't think Jimmy Kimmel should have been fired.
Of course.
First of all,
we'll just let Anna respond, Pastor, please.
Should not have been fired. I don't think that. But President Trump
please go on, Anna.
The American people elected him.
Pastor, please.
You're confusing the American people. Let me just say this real quick, and I'm going to be quiet. The American people elected Donald Trump. He did not elect himself, nor did he steal an election like they did in 2020. The American people elected.
Okay, Pastor, allow Anna to respond, please. Pastor.
Coming from the mouths of people
Pastor,
like you,
stop,
sir,
please.
We still elected him.
Okay. Anna.
Okay, I don't want to adjudicate or re-adjudicate past elections, but I will say this. I agree with much of what Femi had to say here, and the pastor is really coming across as rather reasonable and is willing to say what he disagrees with in regard to what the Trump administration has done. Pastor, is there any possibility for you to go back and advise President Trump, because he could really use your advice at this moment? And look, I just think the one area where I have a disagreement here is that people are allowed to grow and change. And we never had an opportunity to see whether Charlie Kirk's views on Gaza were in fact really changing, if he was really evolving on that issue, or whether he was really evolving on, Palestinian people. And to rob him of his life obviously is wrong. I wouldn't say that I was indifferent after he was assassinated. I actually felt deep sadness, because to me, that was a sign of deep cowardice among a group of people in this country who don't think that they can articulate their ideas effectively enough to persuade the American people to side with them. We have to foster an environment of healthy debate, of mutual respect, even if, and I really do mean this, even if our political opponents meet us with, angry rhetoric that we find abhorrent. I think that it is up to us to be better than that and fight ideas that we disagree with. And to be sure, Charlie Kirk had all sorts of ideas that I vehemently disagreed with, but I was ready and willing to get in the ring with him and really duke it out through our words, through our dialogue, and through our debate. And one other thing I'll just add about Charlie Kirk's political ideology and this tug of war that was going on in regard to his views on Israel and Gaza, you have to keep in mind, the big donors behind Turning Point USA are huge Israel supporters, big time Zionists. At the same time, though, young conservatives in this country under the age of 30 are decidedly against Israel, especially as a result of the genocide happening in Gaza. So Charlie Kirk really found himself in this difficult tension where his donors were pressuring him to toe the line in support of Israel at any and all costs, while young conservatives are really waking up to the reality of what's going down in the Middle East. And so I think that was what was pressuring him or forcing him to really reconsider his political views. But again, we never got a chance to see who Charlie Kirk might have become, what he might have believed, because his life was robbed from him. And I think that's wrong.
Just to clarify, I am indifferent to his death, but I fundamentally oppose his murder because it is bad for democracy. As for what you've just said about Charlie Kirk's motivations and the donors who are massively pro-Israel, the picture you've just painted is one where the money was telling him to support Israel, but he realized that the politics of his voter base, his supportership, was anti-Israel. So that's not somebody who's come to some moral decision. That's somebody who's made a financial decision at first and then a political decision afterwards. That is not a moral person.
Well, I know
possibly,
Charlie,
but we don't know. We don't know for sure.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I know Charlie, and I knew Charlie, excuse me, and I worked with Charlie. I've spoken at many of his Turning Point events. Again, I will be at this Memorial Sunday. The point of it is, I can tell you, he's a lot like me, right? We're pit bulls, we're bullheaded. Once we believe in something, we believe in it. But once we receive new information, our conviction is real. I'm not here to play sides. When I went to Ukraine and I told the president all the devastation that was happening, when nobody was talking positive about Ukraine, when Zelensky was just kicked out of the White House. And then the next week I am in Kyiv unexpectedly. And I began to share the evil that happened at the hands of the Russians. I didn't stand on what was popular. I stood on what is right. And Charlie has those same kind of principles. We disagreed concerning some of his messaging concerning race. But we stand on simpler principles concerning our faith in Christianity and our belief in the American dream, supported by what we still believe the greatest president in our lifetime, President Trump. So when you attack President Trump, you're really attacking the millions of Americans that voted him in. And you're speaking like Donald Trump is a dictator who forced himself to be here. No, his ideals are the ideals of America, who America is today. So you don't insult Donald Trump without insulting America itself as a nation.
I'd just like to move on to our next segment. Moving on to our next topic in this conversation, Jimmy Kimmel has had his show pulled by ABC for speaking out against Charlie Kirk on air. I'd like to go to you, Anna. Was ABC right to pull Jimmy Kimmel's show?
I do not believe that they were right. In fact, if they in any way valued our democracy and the protection of free speech, they would not have allowed the FCC commissioner to bully and pressure them to get rid of Kimmel. And I say that because Nexstar and Sinclair, these are like the two parent companies. They own a bunch of the major channels that would air Kimmel's show. Well, Nexstar has a $6 billion merger coming up that needs to be approved by the FCC. So just to make sure that they're in smoother waters, they decided to throw one of their, stars under the bus to ensure that they'll be able to get that merger deal. So I'm angry that they are willing to not just sell Kimmel out, but sell out the American people, because make no mistake about it, allowing the government to pressure any network or any channel or anyone in the media to get rid of a pundit or a comedian or any type of talent who is critical of the Trump administration or who is critical of the government really sets a dangerous precedent. And this isn't the first time it's happened. Obviously, it happened with, 60 Minutes. It happened with CBS. And it's scary. It is scary because, look, if ABC decided on their own that Kimmel's statements they went like above and beyond what is acceptable following a political assassination, and they decided to suspend them themselves, I actually would have no problem with it. I did not like what Kimmel had to say. I'm just going to be honest. However, the government has no place in censoring speech, and essentially Nexstar is allowing for or facilitating this effort of the federal government to get rid of people who are critical of the federal government. It sets a bad precedent, and I would feel the same way if this was a Democratic administration doing the same to a conservative speaker.
How do you respond, Pastor?
Well,
should Kimmel have lost his job?
I don't think he should have lost his job. Let me just say this. I think what Kimball said was distasteful. It was foul. It was evil. It is the typical leftist that makes fun of those of us who are on the conservative right. And I've been the joke, the pun joke of many of those type of jokes, and they're distasteful, and I think that they're just evil. Having said that, I don't think that he should be fired. I think it's a slippery slope that we have it in America. The First Amendment right has been the bedrock of our Constitution, and whether you agree with it or not, a person should have a right. I don't think he was criticizing the Trump administration, so I want to be very clear about that. And I don't think it's the pressure of President Trump at all. So I want to be clear about that. But at the same time, I think when you look at comedians like Dave Chappelle and other comedians who were attempted to be banned from telling jokes when they spoke about the transgender community, and how so many tried to ban, and many were banned and blocked or counseled because of joking and being able to express their art. As Dave Chappelle said, it is an art form. And whether you think it's funny or not, it's an art form. But now it's becoming to where you cannot talk about transgenders, or you can't say something about, creating a joke, which I completely think is distasteful, and it just shows his poor character as a man. But you should be able to say what you want to say, as long as it's not bringing harm or causing violence or inciting violence to happen. It's a dangerous place, because if we do it to them, meaning we Republicans or conservatives do it to them, they're going to continue to do it back to us. And that's what has happened. We should be able to say what we want to say. It's not just too long ago where pastors in Texas were being requested by a homosexual mayor, requesting the notes from what the pastor was speaking in threat of being arrested. That is evil. The pastor should be able to speak what he believed, free speech. And same goes with those who disagree with Charlie Kirk, those who disagree with transgender or agree. We should have a right to say what we want to say, as long as it's not causing violence or inciting violence or causing people to be harmed. Again, I'm still a pit bull for President Trump. I'm still 100% in his corner. I'm still 100% a MAGA pastor and leader. I call myself, I've been called a spiritual diplomat. I meet with heads of states all over the world. But in this regard, I don't think we should be firing people because they may disagree.
Okay, Pastor, I've just got a question for Femi. This one's for you, Femi. As Anna stated, we've seen Disney and the FCC. They've both stepped in. Is this a case of cancel culture turning on the left?
Well, this is the thing. With the examples that the pastor just gave, like Dave Chappelle, or you could also point to Ricky Gervais, who's also said things against trans people, they still have their jobs. They still kept producing special after special, Netflix after special after Netflix special. This cancel culture, they're still hugely successful. Nobody fired them, but people fired Jimmy Kimmel. People fired Steve Colbert. The cancel culture, the actual censorship, is coming from the right. And so is this just us finally getting a taste of our own medicine? Well, it wasn't. What's happened here is the chilling effect of the... This is a chilling effect of the Trump administration taking an anti-free speech position, saying that he's going after anybody on the left. And you saw the speech that he gave in the White House about how the people responsible, I hold directly responsible for this, are anybody who calls us fascists or Nazis, even though he's behaving like a fascist and a Nazi. Like he has been deliberately trying to steal power. He tried to get an extra 11,000 votes in order to win the previous election. This is not somebody who respects democracy. But calling Donald Trump exactly what he is apparently makes you complicit in murder. No, it's just stating facts as they are.
How you have Trump deranged syndrome, sir. You just have Trump deranged syndrome. I mean, it doesn't matter what's been said.
By quoting his own words back at
what you believe, and that's your own right. But the reality of it is this: the left most definitely started this cancel culture. Yes, and you may say Dave Chappelle still have his job because he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, comedian that existed, in my opinion. But there's so many others that did get canceled. There are so many others that did lose their jobs.
Them, then.
Their careers are over because of the jokes that they said, and the jokes became like ammunition. And those on the left went after them and shut them down. If you don't believe me, ask Disney. What happened to the girl,
Name them then.
Gina Cavardo, who was the former MMA fighter, who was a character on the Mandarin on Disney, was fired because of her conservative beliefs. There are so many other actors that was fired, sir. So don't sit here and act like Jimmy Kimmel got fired, but Dave Chappelle keeps his job. Nah, so many of the right lost their jobs. So many of the people that was counseled by the council culture
that
started by you
of.
people on the left because you forgot the power of the First Amendment. We have a right to say.
Can you name somebody that the audience will actually?
It was wrong
Pastor,
then, and it is wrong now. That's the whole point that I'm making. It was wrong then, and it is wrong now.
Pastor, can you name?
There's a little bit of a distinction, though.
No.
Sorry, there is a bit of a distinction, though, right? I think that what's happening right now is far more insidious because it's the government getting involved. I mean, it is free speech violation 101 when the government gets involved and essentially bullies networks to get rid of critics of the administration. I don't like cancel culture. Let me be clear about that. But I do see it as distinct from what's happening now with the government getting involved. I don't think that you should allow mobs of people to convince employers to fire people that the mobs don't like. But again, that has to do with ordinary private citizens versus the federal government getting involved and bullying networks.
Now, let me just say this, because we're crying over, I agree with you, but the fact is, let me say this, we're crying over Jimmy Kimmel losing his job for being fired. Charlie Kirk is dead for doing the same thing. Dead, whether you agree with him or not. He's not fired. He's dead because of his mouth, because of the things that he said. And I agree with a lot of things Charlie said, and there's some things, as I've already made clear, concerning race that I believe could have been misconstrued by those who are real white supremacists. But the reality of it is Jimmy Kimmel is fired. Charlie Kirk is dead for practicing his First Amendment rights, and that is a very dangerous, slippery slope that we are heading here in America. And
how do you respond, Femi?
Got to say, hey, I don't agree with you, but I won't kill you. I don't agree with you, but I won't counsel you. Do your thing, but let me do mine too. So give and take. That's shit. How do you respond, Femi? In America.
It's kind of weird to draw an equivalence between Charlie Kirk and Jimmy Kimmel, because that would imply that the government was responsible for Charlie Kirk being assassinated. No, state censorship is state censorship. This was a private individual who assassinated somebody. Now, he did not have the backing of the left. He did not have the backing of the government. It was just a private individual. It's not censorship. Censorship is when the government impinges on free speech.
We're just going to move on to the next segment. It's been no surprise in the age of social media that Kirk's assassination has sparked wild conspiracy theories from the left to Israel to Nick Fuentes. Even with an arrest and solid evidence, speculation has raged on. I want to come to you, Femi. What do you make of all this speculation?
So I don't know what this person's motivations are, because it's like when you have when you see in those cop shows where you see the evidence, if it isn't put in the correct bag, then the evidence hasn't followed the correct chain of custody, and so it can't be admissible in court. Unfortunately, the entirety of the evidence gets tainted when it's under an administration that has admitted that they are willing to make up evidence in order to achieve their own political objectives. Now, Donald Trump has explicitly tried to add an extra 11,000 votes to his tally in order to get his political objective, and now he runs the FBI. So it's difficult for me to say. Like, there's the theories about him being a groyper, which is somebody who's aligned with Nick Fuentes, who is somehow even more to the right than Charlie Kirk, which I didn't know was possible, because there's a lot of animosity between the Nick Fuentes lot and the Charlie Kirk lot. So it's feasible, it's plausible, but I don't know. And unfortunately, I feel like we're now in a position where, because everything is tainted by the Trump administration, who has admitted that they are willing to make up evidence when it suits them, I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of it.
How do you respond to that, Anna?
I think the one area that's been pretty consistent and clear is that while it doesn't appear that the alleged shooter, that's Tyler Robinson, was deeply political, the one area in which he had become political was on the issue of LGBT rights. And he apparently identified as bisexual, had a partner who was also his roommate that happened to be transgender. And that was the I guess that was the reason in his mind that it made sense to go after Charlie Kirk. He felt that Charlie Kirk was spreading hatred about the LGBT community, about transgender people. And so since Charlie Kirk was spreading hate, the shooter, Tyler Robinson, thought meeting that hate with murder would be the right cause of action or type of action, which I obviously deeply disagree with. I don't think that he was a groyper. There's no indication that he was a follower of Nick Fuentes's. I also don't think that he was like a far leftist. There was nothing in the records, nothing in the Discord chats or the Discord servers that indicated that he was a deeply political person or leftist. But because of his own personal identity and because of his partner, he was furious with Charlie Kirk and decided to take matters in his own hands in one of the most disgusting ways imaginable.
We've seen an emerging pattern of mass shootings in the US by trans activists. How can the US respond?
Well, like
I'm worried. I'm worried about how they're going to respond to it. But sorry, go ahead, Pastor.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, that there's a pattern that is happening. The reality of it is guns don't kill people. Sick people kill people. People who are dealing with mental conditions. And I think that what President Trump should do is do what other psychiatrists and other mental experts have begun to say, is to recognize the transgender movement as a mental condition. That is just that. The gender dysphoria is a real thing, and we should treat it as such. We shouldn't celebrate it. And people like that should be, should receive some type of a help. It's clear that you're just mentioning the several recent different shootings that have taken place, mass shootings that have taken place in America, has been at the hands of those who were either supporters of the transgender movement or was transgender themselves or transitioning to in their own state.
I think there have been seven. You have to examine that.
Allow Femi to jump in, Pastor.
No, because you guys bring on these shows to talk and debate, and so you want to shut me up. The reality of it is,
allow Femi to jump in, Pastor, please. Pastor, allow Femi to jump in.
Because you don't allow that. You should say, allow Pastor Burns to jump in. You don't do that. You don't say, allow Pastor Burns to jump in. You always make me stop in the middle of my sentences and allow somebody else to jump in.
For about 10 minutes.
That's all I'm saying. The reality of it is that there's gender dysphoria.
You've had a lot of time, Pastor.
And it should be examined.
You've had the most time, Pastor. I'm trying to be fair.
There have been,
I think there have been less than 7 mass shootings linked to trans individuals in the US's history, whereas there are 30,000 gun deaths per year. There are hundreds of school shootings every year. This is very much linked to guns. We in the UK who don't have guns, we do have knives, but I can't think of a regular occurrence of knifings at schools where lots and lots of casualties. It just doesn't happen anywhere near the scale. So guns are the primary issue, because they allow any disturbed individual to choose to go into a school and do whatever they want. Whereas if you have a knife, it's significantly harder. Well, let me just say this. You won't stop a bad person from getting guns. We know that in America. You can stop other people from getting guns,
we do.
But even in the UK, you can't stop people. You don't stop bad people from getting guns. You do not.
Yes,
no, you do not.
We don't have mass shootings.
You do not stop.
We don't stop. We don't have mass shootings
do happen in the UK. They absolutely still happen. We don't have mass
shootings here.
You may not have as many mass shootings because, yes, we allow our citizens, because of the Second Amendment, to own guns, to protect themselves. And there are more good people with guns than there are bad people with guns. But the reality of it is, you won't stop a bad person from getting a gun. You're simply empowering them to shoot more and kill more. So no, sir, I disagree with that at all. There's a reason why we have the Second Amendment in America, and I'm proud of it.
If the purpose of the Second Amendment is to allow people to protect themselves, that means the purpose of the Second Amendment is to protect human life. But the very existence of the Second Amendment is the reason why there are 30,000 gun deaths every year, whereas in the UK, we do not have mass shootings. So the very purpose of the Second Amendment, according to you, is self-contradictory, because it's the reason that your people are dying.
How'd you respond, Pastor?
No, what's preventing burglars from people busting through the door is the reality is that they have a chance of dying to a handgun. Of the normal families that live every single day, the people that bust into individuals' homes and they are killed because the individual homeowner is protecting themselves, protecting their children. That's what's the case. Listen, you're not going to stop evil until Jesus comes back. There's going to always be evil. You could take away guns and people you still have murders in the UK.
We don't have mass shootings in the UK.
Dying, and it may not be as high as America, but people are still violently being killed. You still have serial killers in your country. Can you ban all knives? You know, people are sick because of evil. It is sin. It is from the gates of hell. That's what I was telling Charlie. We shouldn't be talking about the Ukrainian woman as a white woman. We should be talking to her as a woman who was killed viciously, not by a black man, but by evil man, an evil individual that deserves, I believe, unless he gives his heart to Jesus, he needs to go to the gates of hell and be executed as fast as possible. So
allow Femi to respond, please, Pastor.
You accept that the gun deaths in America are significantly higher than in the UK. That means that relative to population size, there'll be a number of people who die because of your attachment to the Second Amendment who wouldn't die if you didn't attach it. So in terms of protecting those people's lives, are you happy for them to die in the name of the Second Amendment, even though it doesn't actually keep people alive? Because as we just established, it is the reason that those people, the difference between the two, are dead.
Shame on you for supporting Charlie Kirk's death because you didn't believe what he believed in. Shame on people like you for supporting Charlie. That's why we on this television show. Shame on you and people like you for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death because you did not agree with what he spoke about. That's what this show is all about. Did I just have a stroke? And this is about people like you who should be called out because that's your character. You believe that folks should die because of what they say. And that is absolutely wrong. And people like you should never be on camera.
How'd you respond?
I think that's unfair, Pastor. That's unfair. I don't think at all that Femi believes that or is supportive of what happened to Charlie Kirk. I think the debate about guns is a fascinating debate. I've become more nuanced on it, especially because we have more guns in the United States per capita than any other country, including Somalia. Yes. And so I don't know if the U.S. would ever be able to do or live under the type of system or type of regulations that you have in the U.K. And look, as someone who does believe in the Second Amendment, I do believe that Americans should have the right to protect their homes, protect themselves from nefarious people who might want to harm them. I also think that we make it far too easy for the bad guys to get their hands on guns legally and as many guns as they want. So I think that, we do need to have a robust conversation and debate about, common sense gun legislation. But aside from that, we have a very big problem in this country in every single state when it comes to undiagnosed and untreated mental health issues, mental health conditions. People need help. And every time there's a mass shooting, I hear my conservative peers, Republicans, talk about how we need to fund mental health care. But when push comes to shove and that legislation is before them and they can make the right decision in helping their fellow Americans with the mental health care they need, they always vote it down. And so we need to be serious about the solutions. I hear a lot of talking points, but I don't really see much action in regard to what needs to be done.
Just to end on this, Anna, why do you think people have been so quick to doubt the official story? And why do you think that Charlie Kirk was targeted?
Well, as far as the conspiracy theories go, I don't begrudge anyone who immediately starts questioning the official narrative coming from the government. We do have a problem in this country, for good reason, in regard to trust toward our institutions. And it's because our institutions have been deceptive in the past. They have not given us the full story, or they have misled us. And remember, we are coming out of the COVID era where there was quite a bit of misinformation coming from the federal government. So again, I do not in any way begrudge anyone who questions, what the official narrative coming from these institutions happens to be. But at the same time, you have to get a little bit of evidence in order to support what your conspiracy is. So if the conspiracy is that Israel was behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk, okay, well, What's the evidence for that? And there really isn't any evidence. So I'm not willing to believe that conspiracy theory unless there's something robust or at least something circumstantial that points in that direction. Right now, there have been Discord chats shared featuring the shooter. One of my friends, who's a wonderful journalist named Ken Klippenstein, was one of the first reporters who got in touch with the childhood friends of the shooter, and as a result had access to the Discord chats in which Tyler Robinson confessed to being the man who assassinated Charlie Kirk. And so that's more evidence in the direction of what's being claimed by, the FBI and by, law enforcement.
We're just out of time. Thank you all so much for your time. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Counterpoints. To keep up to date with our latest debates and interviews, be sure to subscribe to Arabiya English on YouTube, X, and TikTok.